What? Who dares disturb my divine being?
Geralt of Rivia. Pleasure. Expected the Allgod to be corporeal in form, but never thought he'd be corpulent. Fattened up nicely at those peasants' expense.
Expense? Expense? Not a word about the help I give in return. Blessings, absolutions, enlightened advice. Believe me, these folks need all of it. I'd watch over them still if they fulfilled their end. But lately they offer these pathetic scraps.
That they steal from the mouths of their children, and to make matters worse, you cast a curse on them.
And I'll not lift it till they bring me worthy offerings. I'm to settle for curds and whey? Not a chance. And you can tell them that.
Welcome to another Witcher lore video. I was considering what video to make today, and then I saw a suggestion from this user and thought to myself that this actually seems like a really fun video to make, as these creatures aren't explored massively in the games or the books, so I thought this would actually be really fun to make. Anyway, as I'm sure you can tell by the title, today's video is gonna be on Sylvans. To begin with, it is worth noting that Sylvans in the books are a little bit different to Sylvans in The Witcher 3. In The Witcher 3, they have the appearance of an obese, clumsy creature, but in the books, they are small and nimble. But you can also note that all the other descriptors are there for both versions, such as say the horns or the goat legs, and despite the appearance of the Sylvan in The Witcher 3, they are still extremely agile, so they kept that from the books. A Sylvan is an extremely rare, humanoid species in the Witcher universe. But Sylvan is not the only name that these creatures are known by. For example, they have also been called Devil, Yaksha, Puka, Diovel, and Willower. They are also known to live in the forests of Brokilon along with the Dryads and Leprechauns, who just about tolerate their presence as Sylvans can be a little bit difficult to live with. They are also known to live in farming areas. For example, in the Witcher books, one is found by Geralt and Dandelion whilst they are in the Valley of Flowers. They mainly go to fertile farming areas simply because of the large quantities of food contained there, as Sylvans really like their food. Sylvans are known to be able to speak both common speech and elder speech, showing their clear intelligence over a lot of other creatures in the Witch universe. As for their lifespan, Sylvans on average live more than 100 years, which is quite old considering that humans on average probably in the Witch universe might live till they're about 70 or 80, maybe even less. In general, Sylvans aren't seen as a threat to humans and are normally considered harmless. They play tricks, pranks, and love riddles. They can also be helpful as they fertilize fields and scare birds away, and they also watch over crops and eat caterpillars. So they're not all bad, they do actually help out occasionally, be it willingly or just by instinct. Sylvans always value a peaceful resolution when they're caught, and they dislike bloodshed. All of the information I just stated applies to Sylvans from the books and The Witcher 3, but for this next bit of information, I'm going to discuss what has been added to these creatures in The Witcher 3. As in The Witcher 3, with Sylvans, CD Projekt Red have gone about it in a pretty clever way. They haven't really changed the original lore that much, they've just expanded upon it and kind of made their own interpretation of the descriptions, which is pretty cool. So in The Witcher 3, Sylvans are depicted as obese and lazy by nature. If they had it their way, they would gladly spend all day, every day, relaxing, be that by consuming large amounts of food or drinking strong drinks. Similar to the books, Sylvans most enjoy taking what other people have earned or worked for. For example, demanding free food, without ever doing anything in return. Because unlike in the books, in The Witcher 3, Sylvans don't really do anything for humans. They don't even do any of the eating caterpillars or watching over crops or anything. They just kind of like to gorge themselves. Of course, their habit of taking what doesn't belong to them does get them in trouble, and this sometimes can result in angry humans trying to get rid of the Sylvans by force. This generally does not end well for the humans involved, as Sylvans, despite their appearance, are extremely agile and strong. The Sylvans in The Witcher 3 are also said to smell very unpleasant, causing most to encounter them to gag or faint. As for their combat, as said before, Sylvans are very strong and agile, so attempting to parry their blows or participate in any melee combat is difficult. It is best to try and avoid their melee attack and instead trap them with Iridan, or alternatively attempt to deal damage with Igni or get a few strikes in with Quen activated. Also, be aware aware of their ability to breathe flames, which is also known to melt armor, and also of course, bombs and a crossbow are good to avoid their melee skill. As an interesting side note, their ability to breathe fire is not present in the books and is a complete game invention. As for the class of these creatures are classed as relics, and relics as a class is quite vague and it includes a lot of monsters that just kind of don't really have a place anywhere else. For example, the Caretaker's classed as a relic, as are fiends and godlings, but they're all very different creatures. These creatures are also particularly vulnerable to Samum, Devil's Puffball, Igni, and Relic Oil, because obviously being classed as a relic, they would be affected by Relic Oil. And another interesting fact is that in the Witcher games, they only ever seem to appear in Velen. We never see them in Skellige, Toussaint, or Kaer Morhen. Another important fact to note about Sylvans is that they won't just cooperate with only humans. For example, I mentioned earlier about how they'll watch over crops for humans and fertilize fields, but they'll also work for other intelligent entities, such as the crones. Because you may remember that Fugus, who is a Sylvan from The Witcher 3, acted as a guardian at the Bald Mountain Caves for the crones. So from that, we can see that Sylvans are willing to work with anyone that helps them with their goals. Or I suppose there's the possibility that the crones forced him to be their guardian, but it didn't really seem that way. As for their appearance, they appear to resemble a human with goat horns, along with hairy legs and hooves. They also have tails. In The Witcher 3, obviously they're depicted as obese and clumsy, as I said before, and in the books they're small and nimble. That's the key major differences between their appearance in the books and games. But an interesting point to note is that Sylvans do appear to differ in appearance quite majorly sometimes. For example, if you look at the difference between Allgod and Fugus, they both possess similar characteristics, but equally look very different. I mean, look at the difference in their skin color and their appearance. There's definitely differences within this species. Maybe they're just not classified yet. Notable Sylvans include Torque, Allgod, and Fugus, and there isn't actually any other Sylvans mentioned in the games or the books, so these are the main ones. And I'll do a video on each of them in the future, most likely. Finally, to end today's video, their Bestiary entry. Sylvans are cruel, greedy, and treacherous. Still, I prefer them to Dwan. Yavin, legendary Scoia'tael commander. Sylvans and Yakshas, a kindred species, are extremely rare woodland creatures whose appearance combines traits of goats and rotund men. These beings usually pose little danger, for they limit their contact with humans to playing harmless, though often bothersome, tricks, and eating crops from their fields. So yeah, Sylvans in The Witcher 3 do all the things that Sylvans in the books do, just to a little bit of a lesser extent, as obviously they're quite big and they don't really blend in all that well. Anyway guys, that's the end of today's video. I hope you've all enjoyed. Today's video has been really fun to make. I feel like Sylvans are a really interesting creature, but in The Witcher 3 as well, as we don't meet that many of them and we don't really see all that many of them, but they all have their own unique personalities and they're all really cool just to interact with. So anyway guys, I hope you've all enjoyed today's video anyway. As always, be sure to follow me on Twitter. I do updates on there whenever anything interesting's happening. Recently, one of my Witcher parts had a bit of an issue, and I discussed that on Twitter, so if you want to make sure you're in tune for stuff like that, when there might be problems with videos and things like that, or just when I post videos or pictures or anything to do with The Witcher or other series I like, I'd recommend going and following me on there. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitch. I'll get back to streaming on there soon. I've got a lot to do at the minute, and I've got a few things to sort out. I'm getting a new computer soon, so I'm probably going to start streaming when that arrives, as then it'll just be a bit easier and it won't be as laggy and things, so I'll be able to fix that for you guys. Also, be sure to like the video. These videos take me a long time to do. I'm going to try and do a new editing technique with today's video, and I hope it'll work out when you guys are watching, but we'll have to see. So if you enjoyed that new technique and you like these sort of videos, be sure to like it, as it really does help me out. And also, of course, if this is the first video you're finding on my channel, be sure to subscribe. I do Witcher lore videos every few days. I do Witcher parts. I plan to get into some other stuff soon when I have time, so if you want to make sure you don't miss those videos, I'd recommend subscribing to the channel, and then you'll get the video in your subscription box. And finally, as always, a big thank you to the Patreon pledges. I appreciate every single one of you that supports me on Patreon. It really does help out the channel. You're all really, really kind. Thank you all so much for donating to me on Patreon. I just want to say thank you to all of you, and I'm glad to put all your names at the end of these videos. If anyone wants to donate to me on Patreon, follow me on Twitter, Twitch, or even join the Discord or join the Reddit, all the links are in the description, so be sure to check there if you're interested. Anyway guys, I hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you in the next one. Have an awesome rest of the week.